All right, so today we're going to be dealing with ratios, but we're going to be doing them in a little bit of a different way. We're going to be using tape diagrams. So that's going to be the topic for today. We're on lesson 15. It says, let's look at situations where we can add the quantities in a ratio together. So you're just listening for now. It says a tape diagram is another way to represent a ratio. All the parts of the diagram that are the same size have the same value. So this here, what you see, that is a tape diagram, the blue and the white. For example, this tape diagram represents the ratio of ducks to swans. So you have ducks here, you have swans here, and your ratio is 4:5. So the first tape represents the number of ducks, and it has 4 parts. The second tape represents the swans, and it has 5 parts. So there's 4 boxes for ducks, 5 boxes for swans. So there are 9 total parts in all. And that is because 4 plus 5 equals 9. So it says, suppose we know there are 18 of these birds in the pond, and we want to know how many are ducks. So the 9 equal parts on the diagram need to represent 18 in all. This means that each part of the tape diagram represents 2, because 18 divided by 9 makes 2. So there are 4 parts on the tape diagram representing ducks. That's what you see here. And because 4 times 2 is 8, right? So there are 8 ducks in the pond. And that is from adding up these here. That's how they got what they got. So we're going to practice this. So a tape diagram is a group of rectangles that are put together to represent a relationship between quantities. For example, this tape diagram shows that the ratio of 30 gallons of yellow paint to 50 gallons of blue paint. And if each rectangle were labeled 5 instead of 10, then the same picture would represent the equivalent ratio of 15 gallons of yellow paint and 25 gallons of blue. So we're thinking of ways to evenly distribute the numbers into each of these boxes. So you're in your book on page 81. So now we're talking about cubes of paint. So a recipe for maroon paint says, mix 5 milliliters of red with 3 milliliters of blue. And we're talking about paint, right? So it says use snap cubes to represent the amount of red and blue paint in the recipe. You don't have snap cubes at home, but you can draw it the same way that I did right here. So in your book on number 1, you're going to draw that 5 red boxes and 3 blue boxes. And you'll write it just like I did, or draw it, sorry. Okay, so A says, what amount does each cube represent? So the answer is 1 milliliter. How many milliliters of maroon paint will there be? And the answer is 8. So you're going to take this 5 and this 3, or this 5 and this 3, and you're going to add them. And that's how they got 8 milliliters. Now the total is 8. So we need to distribute the 1 into each of these. So there's a 1 in each of these. You just can't see it because I'm using red. And then a 1, a 1, a 1. So every box is 1. And if you add them all together, you'll get 8. That would be the total for maroon. Now it says, suppose each cube represents 2. How much of each color will there be? So for red, it will be 10, because there's 5 red times this 2. So you'll put 10. There are 6 blue, because this 3 times the 2 is 6. So 3 times 2 is 6. Now, when we want to know maroon, we're going to add the red number and the blue number together. And that's going to give us the total milliliters for maroon. Now we're going to do this differently. Now we're going to do, suppose each cube represents 5 milliliters. how much would each color would there be? So here we have 5 milliliters. So we're going to take this 5 up here because there's 5 in the original recipe or mix, however you want to look at it. And that's how I got that 5 times 5. So your answer is 25 for red. Now for the blue, I have 3 blue here, but the total that they're telling me to multiply by is that 5 there. So 5 times 3 makes that 15. And to get the total for the recipe or the color paint, however you want to look at it, you're going to add both of the totals. So you'll add this 25 and this 15 to get the total milliliters for the maroon. So now we move to our next one, and it says, suppose you need 80 milliliters of maroon paint. How much red and blue paint would you mix? So here's what I did to start out. This is what I keep kind of teaching you guys. I took this 80, and that's going to be there, and I divided it by 8 because there are 8 of these, right? There's 8 in it. So 80 divided by 8 is 10. So my unit rate or my per one, however you want to look at this, is 10. So now I'm going to take that 10 and I'm going to multiply it to the original problem. So the red paint has 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm going to do 10 times 5. And this 10 is from here. Now my original part has 3. So that's what I'm going to do. That's how I get the 10 times 3. And I'm going to get the 30 for the blue. Now take note, like I did earlier, this 50 of the red and this 30 of the blue makes the total for maroon 80. So if the original recipe is for 1 batch of maroon paint, how many batches are in 80 milliliters of maroon? And that is what I answered for you just up there. You would do the 80 divided by the 8 in the original, and you would get 10. And it would be 10 batches for the maroon. Okay, so sneakers, chicken, and fruit juice. So we're only doing one of these. We're on page 82. The ratio of students wearing sneakers to those wearing boots is 5 to 6. Those are key numbers. So I would highlight those in your book. If there are 33 students in the class and all of them are either wearing sneakers or boots, how many are wearing sneakers? So this problem has multiple steps. I would pay close attention because Khan Academy is going to be just like what I'm about to do. So to start us out, what I did is I said, okay, well, sneakers is 5. And I put 5 boxes for sneakers. And boots is 6. So my original recipe or increments, however you want to describe it, is 5 plus 6. And that would give me 11. Okay, so I'm going to take that 11 and I'm going to divide it by that 33. So 33 divided by 11 makes 3. So now what that first 3 tells me is in every box, there's 3. Now, this is going to be important because we're trying to find a part of the whole. And this is just a strategy for finding that. So now what happens is the original problem wants to know sneakers. So I'm looking at this here. This is what matters right there. So there are 3 in every one. And how many kids are wearing the sneakers? Well, the answer is there's 5. It's 5 to 6. So 3 times 5 makes 15. So there are 15 kids that are wearing sneakers. Okay. So what you're going to do is join the meet and you're going to do the practice.